Ludacris, chart topper, movie star, and the face behind Disturbing the Peace. But while he was racking up plaques, some of his own artists were getting left behind, silenced, ignored, and straight up pushed out the frame. Field Mob, the Southern duo with raw bars and deep-rooted storytelling, thought they hit the jackpot when they signed to Luda. But instead of stardom, they got shady moves, ghosted promises, and money that mysteriously vanished. They weren't just pushed to the side. Folks say they were blackballed, erased from their own legacy like they never played a part in the hit that should have launched them into the big leagues. And that hit, it didn't even get credited to them. Somebody else got the shine. Ludacris was throwing slick shots too. The tension with Field Mob boiled over after one major moment, Georgia. To the world, it looked like a huge win. Luda, Field Mob, and Jamie Foxx all waving that Disturbing the Peace flag.
I mean, I know how that money comes. You know what I'm saying? My song is the state song. Georgia's the state song.
We had a song with Ludacris. So one day I'm at the crib, right? And I'm watching MTV. How you gonna debut my shit that ain't even there? After you steal my shit, and I write certain songs for you, and then you get a Grammy for a song.
Man, I don't believe in, I can't believe people believe people. Like, man, I hear on every...
Behind the scenes, Field Mob was heated. They felt like they were being straight up erased from their own creation. In multiple interviews, they claimed Georgia was their track from the jump, said they brought the concept, laid the verses, built the whole vibe. Then Ludacris swooped in last minute as a feature. But when the track dropped, it was marketed like his song. Ludacris featuring Field Mob and Jamie Foxx. To the public, it looked like Luda's masterpiece, not theirs, and the disrespect kept rolling. Field Mob said they didn't even get a heads up about the Georgia music video drop. They just flipped on BET one day, and boom! There it was, airing without warning. No call, no message, nothing. And when they watched it, they were barely in it. In their own words, it felt like they were getting slowly cut out of the spotlight. But the final slap in the face? That Grammy situation. And that took things way too far. When Georgia got nominated, Ludacris hit the stage solo. No Field Mob in sight. No invite, no shout out, no mention, nothing. To them, that was the confirmation. Ludacris was taking full credit while they were being ghosted from their own work. They weren't begging for red carpets or favors. They just wanted respect. If they helped build the track, why were they being treated like they had nothing to do with it? Instead, everything, the credit, the business, the spotlight got handled behind their backs. No calls, no sit-downs, no straight answers, just cold silence. And to this day, there's no public paperwork showing who really owns the Georgia Masters. No lawsuits, no court fights, just confusion. Legally, it's all a blur. But emotionally, professionally, Field Mob felt it loud and clear. They got sidelined on the one track that could have changed their whole career. But even with all that heat, they stayed. Why? Contracts. Field Mob was locked into a multi-album deal with Disturbing the Peace, and that deal was tied to Def Jam South. Walking away meant war, and serious legal smoke they couldn't afford. Shows they used to get booked for? Gone. Collabs that were in the works? Quietly vanished. According to them, this wasn't bad luck. It felt targeted. Sean J said in one interview that whispers started creeping in, calls being made behind their backs, warnings passed around. In his words, it felt like a quiet campaign to keep them locked out of key rooms. Now let's be real. No solid proof has ever come out linking Ludacris to blackballing them. No leaked emails, no secret recordings, no receipts. But Field Mob's convinced somebody with pull was blocking their next moves. And they trace all that static right back to their fallout with DTP. That's when it stopped being personal and started messing with their whole future. In this game, your network is your power. In this industry, if big names stop picking up your calls or labels won't even schedule a meeting, your buzz dies fast. And Field Mob says that's exactly what happened to them. They called out specific moments, being blocked from red carpets, left off award show guest lists, even major platforms suddenly ghosting them. No explanations, just doors quietly closing. And here's the kicker, they weren't alone. Other ex-DTP artists said the same. Shauna, who was also signed under Ludacris, revealed she got blocked from performing at the BET Hip Hop Awards after splitting from the label. She never straight up named Ludacris, but fans and insiders, they started connecting the dots fast, especially when she hinted it was someone from my former label. What makes her situation hit harder is this. She never had beef with Luda. No diss tracks, no Twitter wars, no messy back and forth. And still, she got allegedly blackballed. That silence, it made the story even louder. This wasn't personal drama. It looked like a quiet fallout that turned very real behind the scenes. And then you got Chingy, not officially DTP, but still tied in through Def Jam South. He had his own run-ins with Ludacris and the label's messy politics. In a 2013 Vlad TV interview, Chingy said straight up, "I didn't like how things were handled. You don't treat artists like that when they help you win." He later made it clear, no personal beef with Luda. But the way management moved back then had him feeling played, pushed out, and straight up disrespected. Even I-20, one of the most loyal DTP soldiers, admitted in throwback interviews that everything wasn't smooth behind the scenes. He never accused Ludacris of blackballing him, but he hinted that once the machine stopped pushing you, it was damn near impossible to move, even if you were still part of the crew. So when Field Mob said they were getting iced out, it didn't sound wild. It sounded familiar. Artists who helped build the brand were getting cut loose the moment dynamics shifted, whether it was personal or business. But Field Mob, they didn't take it in silence. They aired it out in interviews, dropped slick lines in freestyles, and poured it into the music. No full diss track, but the shade was loud. They felt betrayed, pushed aside, and damn near erased from a chapter of Southern rap they helped build. To them, this wasn't just business, it cut deep. As more doors slammed shut, Field Mob went back to what they did best, raw, uncut music. They dropped tracks not for clout, but to speak their truth. These weren't diss records, they were responses. Records laced with frustration, pain, and everything they'd been forced to swallow. And yeah, one of those joints aimed straight at Ludacris. Because according to them, Georgia wasn't just about missing credit, it was about missing money too. And that's where the story really starts heating up. According to Field Mob, the money never lined up with the impact. Georgia was one of their biggest tracks ever, but they say their bank accounts didn't reflect that. No proper payout, no clear breakdown, and with no lawsuit or public paperwork, it's still murky who got what behind the curtain. But one thing's been steady, their message. We helped build it, but never saw the benefits. And it wasn't just Georgia. They hinted the whole system under Disturbing the Peace had issues. Money moves were being made without their input, and they claimed they were kept in the dark on everything from royalties to rights to revenue splits. What cut the deepest? Georgia was supposed to be their breakout. It had all the ingredients, commercial heat, a Grammy nod, and Jamie Foxx on the hook. But instead of a come-up, they say they got sidelined. No spotlight, no real bag. Field Mob says it felt less like a partnership and more like being managed, controlled. Coming up out of Albany, Georgia, they were used to hustling solo, but once they signed to DTP, the power shifted. Everything got centralized, communication dried up, decisions got made without them even in the room. No lawsuits, no contract leaks. But their story hasn't wavered. After Georgia blew up, they didn't get the shine, the respect, or the check they felt they earned. And the fallout was just getting started. In the years that followed, Field Mob didn't just speak on the money, they started calling out the creative side too. They claimed they weren't just making their own tracks, they were ghostwriting for Ludacris himself. As their fallout with Luda dragged on, Field Mob peeled back more layers, especially when it came to the pen game. Sean J straight up said in interviews that they were writing bars for Ludacris, not just with him. Now, ghostwriting ain't rare in the game, especially when artists are juggling movies, tours, and label business. But for Field Mob, it stung. They felt like they were being used behind the curtain. putting in work while being pushed out of the spotlight. Let's keep it real. Ludacris has never confirmed or denied that Field Mob ghost wrote for him. No liner notes, no credits, no receipts on paper, but Field Mob, they've stood on that claim for years. They say they handed over hooks, verses, even full flows, only to watch the final tracks drop with zero mention of their names. And Sean J didn't bite his tongue either. In one interview, when pressed about the tension, he put it plain. If you got something to say it to my face. That smoke wasn't subliminal. It was personal. At that point, it wasn't just business, it got personal. Field Mob felt like their creative work had been straight up erased, and instead of getting a convo or closure, all they got was silence. No call, no acknowledgement, just cold distance. And even though none of their claims have been legally proven or publicly addressed, the fact that their story stayed consistent and lines up with what other DTP artists have said still got folks asking, what really went down behind those DTP doors? Field Mob believed their pen was a big reason DTP Records slapped the way they did. But the spotlight, the praise, it never circled back to them. And when they claimed the checks were short too, that's when resentment started boiling. Ghostwriting in hip-hop's always been a tricky subject. Some artists own it, others hide from it, but when the writers start speaking up, it can flip how fans view everything. In Field Mob's case, they said they stayed quiet out of respect. But after feeling shut out, miscredited, and underpaid for the biggest hit tied to their name, that silence broke. At this point, it wasn't just about a music video or a royalty check, it was bigger. This wasn't just about one song. It was
like
the
they
bigger
were being
picture.
used behind the scenes
Field
while
Mob
being
felt
left out
like
in
they were
public.
pushed out of the very label they helped put on the map. And the longer they kept quiet, the more the narrative leaned in Ludacris's favor, so they flipped the switch and started talking. Not just in interviews, but through bars. Once the ghostwriting claims hit the surface, the energy shifted. That silence turned into heat. Field Mob went back to the booth and did what they do best: speak through the music. Forget Twitter rants or IG lives. They dropped a series of tracks that weren't labeled as diss records, but made it crystal clear. They were calling out their time at disturbing Thaw Peace. And one name kept getting dropped: Ludacris. They aired out being sidelined, lyrics stolen, and business moves made behind their backs. They didn't have to say names in every bar. If you knew the story, you knew exactly who they were talking about. These weren't clout-chasing tracks. This was about setting the record straight. Field Mob felt misrepresented, blackballed, and quietly shoved out of a label they gave real credibility to. And the only way to take their story back was through the mic. But then, things got even tenser, because Ludacris fired back, not in a sit-down interview, not with a tweet, but with a slick subliminal verse on a future track. Field Mob caught it instantly. Whether Luda meant it or not, they took it as a shot. And from their side, that wasn't just rap, that was confirmation. And it only added more heat to the fallout. They felt blacklisted, cut out, and now clowned in public. So they clapped back with bars, calling out the hypocrisy they saw loud and clear.
Taught me though that, hey man, they'll smile in your face just to jump on your hot song, and then they'll throw you in the tax write-off section, you know what I'm saying? And that's cold-blooded. Shout out to the people at DTP that I love and got love for, and even shout out to them for what they did. Because
it's who started saying disturbing the peace was stealing from me. Not me. I never said it. The lawyer.
They claimed they kept quiet out of loyalty, but what did they get in return? Silence, then subliminals, then straight up erasure. At that point, any chance at patching things up felt long gone. Still, it never turned violent. No lawsuits, no face-offs, just verses. But in hip-hop, that's all it takes to shift the narrative. To most fans, this drama flew under the radar. No radio explosions, no social media chaos. But for Field Mob, it wasn't some small misunderstanding. It was a slow breakdown of trust in a label relationship that never gave back what they put in. Even with the music out, the damage had already hit. Field Mob wasn't chasing revenge. They just wanted their respect. But what they got instead? Silence, and then jokes made at their expense. Now the question is, where do things stand today? Did Field Mob ever get the recognition they deserved after the fallout with Ludacris and Disturbing Thaw Peace? Over time, their mainstream presence faded. They never officially broke up, and the music never fully stopped, but the momentum clearly did. Sean J has been the louder voice of the two, showing up in interviews and on platforms like The Raw Report and various YouTube podcasts. He stayed vocal about their past, often circling back to the Georgia situation that still feels unresolved. They've pointed to ghostwriting and behind-the-scenes label politics as the reasons they quietly drifted out of the spotlight. While Sean J kept speaking up, the other half of Field Mob played it cool, still rapping here and there, even teasing a solo drop at one point, but he stayed low-key ever since. They've hinted at a possible reunion a few times. A few snippets and underground tracks popped up over the years, but nothing official blew up or made waves. To fans, Field Mob still stands as one of the most original Southern rap duos from the early 2000s. But after the DTP fallout, that momentum never really came back. As for Ludacris, he switched lanes completely. Acting became his main bag, especially with the Fast and Furious franchise and other Hollywood moves. He's still got respect in hip-hop, no doubt, but when it comes to his past artists, he keeps it quiet. He's never spoken on the Field Mob situation. No reconciliation, no acknowledgement of the ghostwriting talk, no apology, no rebuttal, nothing. The whole story's been told from Field Mob's side, through interviews, bars, and memories, and that's how it stayed. Even with all the smoke, Field Mob never went full nuke. No lawsuits, no public meltdown, just their truth, laid out track by track. No lawsuits, no messy smear campaigns, just memories in the music and a quiet shadow of what could have been. They haven't ruled out a comeback, but if it ever goes down, it'll be on their terms. No middlemen, no label politics, no watered down vision. Whether or not the industry ever gives them their flowers, Field Mob's stamp on Southern rap is hard to ignore. That signature sound, raw pen game, and honest storytelling helped shape a whole era. They might not have reached the heights they deserved under DTP, but their journey still matters. Because sometimes the music tells a truth the business tries to bury, and this Field Mob versus Ludacris story, it never got a real ending. No blow-ups on stage, no viral diss tracks, no messy IG back and forth. But what did get left behind was a quiet crack in the image between what fans thought DTP stood for and what was really going down behind the scenes. Field Mob came in with heat, raw talent, street credit, and a Southern flavor nobody else had. They were different, country, unfiltered, lyrical, real. They brought soul to the DTP lineup. But somewhere along the ride, things stalled. Was it miscommunication, industry politics, personal tension with Ludacris? The full story might never surface. What we do know is this: Georgia could have launched Field Mob into the stratosphere, but it didn't. Instead, Georgia became a breaking point. It's the track most folks link to Field Mob, but ironically, it's also the one they say cost them the most. The blackballing claims? Still unproven, but the pattern they describe lines up with what other ex-DTP artists have hinted at. And while Ludacris has stayed silent, that silence left a gap, and Field Mob filled it with their truth. But this ain't about making one side the villain. It's about exposing how the label system really works. How power, control, and ego can erase artists from the very stories they helped create. Field Mob might never get that big industry comeback, but through their interviews, their bars, and their raw truth, their voice, still loud, still real, still here. Field Mob was never just background noise. They were part of that early 2000s Southern wave that changed the game. Raw, country, and full of soul. Award or not, their influence still echoes in how Southern rap evolved and in the ongoing convo about credit, ownership, and respect. No shout-outs, no public fallouts, no bridges burned, just two artists standing on what they created and saying, our story still matters. That's all for now. Make sure you hit that like button, drop a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to Gossip for more real rap stories.